Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of the program, Pot Up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got our normal Thursday lined up. Brent Beaird, college football analyst. And then we'll have the second portion of today's program, the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with high school football kicking off. Let's go ahead and go to the Titan Moore Hotline. And we're joined by, as I said, our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, doing well. Good to be on with you, as always, as we head into another pivotal weekend of SEC football after we just finished a weekend last weekend that had all kinds of surprises, and I think this one may be right in line with that one.
So, Brent, before we jump into this week in the football rankings and stuff, anything surprise you last week? Obviously, you're an Alabama guy. They're pretty much out of the hunt. Was that the biggest surprise to you, losing to LSU?
Well, it was certainly one of them. But I'll be honest with you, the way that Alabama has played this year, they're very fortunate to have not had a loss to Texas and Texas A&M. Yeah. So and we'll get into this when we get into the game, but there are issues, immediate and long range, that they have got to be able to deal with. So yeah, I would probably say that was by far the biggest surprise. And I'll be honest with you, I thought they might win, but I thought Florida on the road at A&M played extremely well. And I don't know. Look, I get all the people who are out sick or injured, but in this league, first year on the road, I thought that was a significant win for Florida. I don't care how deleted A&M was. So that they would probably be my second biggest surprise of the weekend, Shane, because of a resounding win.
Yeah, they played extremely well. Best game of the year. Hopefully they can build on it for the next 3 games. Brent, the college football rankings came out. I think it kind of went as everyone expected. You know, there's a lot of talk about LSU being the first team possibly to make the 14 playoff with 2 losses if they were to win the SEC championship. And I get that. I don't see how any way they can beat the Georgia Bulldogs, quite honestly. But there's 4 unranked teams right now. Things are going to work itself out because 2 of them play each other. TCU's got a lot of difficult games ahead. Let's just guesstimate who may have 1 loss when it's all said and done. Who do you think out of the 1-loss teams can make it?
Out of the 1-loss teams, maybe I'm looking at Oregon with this 8-1. I think they may be a possibility. Now a lot of people are going to argue Tennessee at 8-1, or at least that's where they are now. But the important thing is the 1 loss. But the reality is, if Georgia wins out, Georgia's going to the SEC championship. They could play LSU, even though mathematically, if LSU loses 2 games and Bama wins out, Bama would go. But at this point, I'm with you. I don't see anybody beating Georgia, and you would have Tennessee runs table. You'd have a 1-loss Tennessee team. But if Georgia beat LSU, let's say it was LSU, and then you've got Georgia, and then you've got Tennessee, if Tennessee's only loss, and it was a significant loss, it's to the number one team in the country, they very well may get in. So all kinds of scenarios still left to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now Georgia's a lock. The winner of Ohio State, Michigan's a lock.
Yes.
And then the other two teams are going to have a loss. TCU, in my opinion, will lose a game. If they lose a game, they're out. So I think it's going to come down between Oregon and Tennessee, and the loser of that Big Ten matchup. So
yes,
I think Tennessee sits in a great spot. I think they go 11-1 and they'll get in. We'll see. A lot of football still left to be played, but there was something here in your notes I wanted to get to. You got a lot of stuff here talking about. Oh, it was the transfer. What the teams in the SEC each need looking forward to next year, getting out of the transfer portal. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it was. I give Matt Hayes credit for that, and I'll just hit on a few of them. Georgia, for instance, the Dogs lost 13 players last year in the portal. And then add one. Would they be advantageous to try to get a receiver? Maybe, because frankly, Georgia really doesn't have a number one receiver or number one running back, but they're still the number one team in the country. So that's fascinating. Tennessee, offensive line and wide receiver. They need a bell cow on the line of scrimmage. And could use multiple wideouts. Offensive line is obvious for Alabama with the protection and how that has struggled. For Florida, Matt mentions every position. Napier hit the portal. Yeah, Napier hit the portal too late last season. He and his staff will be more active this time around. Well, and I think in fairness, he's got several teams who need a lot of help and a lot of help at multiple positions. So again, the portal, when it gets up and going again, will be fascinating to watch because it can put you in position a whole lot quicker than just going through high school seniors.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how many players the Gators get out of the portal. I mean, they're not going to take guys just to take them, but I got a feeling it's going to be 15-ish or so, personally. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending, right? Helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Speaking with Brent Beaird, we'll have Mike Ridaught from the prepzone.com and Main Street Data News talking a little high school football in the second portion of today's program. Heisman Trophy, Brent. There's no clear-cut winner right now. I firmly believe that Bryce Young has played as well as he did last year, maybe be better, but they're losing games. But the number one guy on the list here is a guy that I absolutely love, Drake May from North Carolina. I talked about it yesterday on the program. He's having an unbelievable year. I don't think he'll win it. If I was going to vote today, I'd still give it to Hendon Hooker.
Yeah. Well, and Hooker still got several more games. He wasn't great against Georgia's defense, but frankly, who is? Stetson Bennett's still in there, and he's still playing very steady. Now, some other guys of interest who is going up there is Jaden Daniels of LSU, who has played well. I'm curious what you think of him. Now, Bo Nix has stepped up. To his credit, Shane and I have not been overly impressed with Bo when he was at Auburn, but to his credit, he stepped it up at Oregon. You still got obviously C.J. Stroud in there too, but I'm with you. I really like Drake May too, but isn't it interesting, Shane, as the season goes along, that if you produce late, you can catch people's eye like Bo Nix at Oregon and Jane Daniels at LSU.
Yeah, you really can. And, it's amazing to me looking at these stats for the passing yardages.
Yes.
And who would ever guess that Stetson Bennett had more passing yards than anybody up for the Heisman right now? Isn't
That's
that crazy?
incredible, isn't it? It
Yeah,
really
I
is.
mean, I'm shocked just reading this. I knew he was having a good year, but he's thrown for more yards than Hendon Hooker. He's thrown for more yards than Bryce Young. He's thrown for more yards than C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's crazy.
and Shane, how about the? Now I know Hendon Hooker, his touchdowns interception ratio is just outstanding, 25-2. But can we give Bennett a little credit too, Shane? As you mentioned, 17 touchdowns, only 3 picks.
Yeah, it's he's played really, really well. Coaches keep getting fired in college football and in pro football. You hearing anything out there for some of the openings right now, Brent?
Oh, there are all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, Deion Sanders is mentioned for about every job that comes open. I think if Bill Clark at UAB was healthy or healthier, I think he would be up for the same thing. I mean, you still hear Lane Kiffin a little bit, well, not a little bit, but some with Auburn too. So, but this will double in the next 2 or 3 weeks, probably. But Shane, isn't it interesting? Nebraska was one of the first here to get rid of Scott Frost, and I'm not saying you don't hear anything, but that Nebraska job search is as quiet as a church mouse sometimes.
It really is. The preseason number 1, once again, will not win the national title. And you got a stat here. It's crazy how many years in a row that's happened.
Well, it's amazing.
Who was the one team that was preseason and won it?
I think one. Let me think about that a minute. I actually would have to look that up. That and the stat we're talking about is the Alabama was preseason number 1 with their 2 losses. That basically means, and again, we'll just say mathematically they're still alive, but that 17 times in the last 18 years, the AP preseason number 1 did not win the title. So they say that's kind of a curse that goes along with that. But I will look that up. I'm very curious about that now too. But that's a real oddity in the chain.
It really is. It's crazy. Speaking of the Crimson Tide, they're going to go to Oxford this week, which we all thought this was going to be a huge game. It's still a big game, but I'm anxious to see how Alabama plays, Brent, because, now, as you said, they're still alive, but let's be realistic. They ain't going to have a chance at the 14 playoff. How do these kids respond? I saw on Twitter after the game, I follow some of those old Alabama dudes, and a lot of their tweets were all about these kids don't play the way that an Alabama player is supposed to play. It's all about the NIL. It's all they care about, the money. They don't care about the uniform anymore. You got a lot of ties to Alabama. How do you see these guys responding?
Well, I think it's one of 2 things here. One is for the future. I think they're going to make some wholesale changes in the staff. I think that Nick Saban has had a lot of good recruiters, but they're not developing some of these players, and that is an issue. They are not creative at all on offense. Now, Bryce Young is creative, but the play calling has been criticized soundly. So I think there's some real thought about changing up the staff. I think there's some real thought about going back and being much more physical. The SEC, I learned this from you years ago. The SEC, no matter what we want to say about 7-on-7 football with great quarterbacks and wide receivers, the SEC is still a line of scrimmage league. Physicality means something. So I think they're going to go back to some of that. But for the here and the now, Shane, and put your coaching hat on a minute. I think the key to this game is Ole Miss can really run the football, and they lead the SEC in rushing. And what we see in them is Zach Evans, the TCU transfer, Quinshon Jenkins, who, by the way, changed from the state of Alabama. Bama didn't recruit him real well or real heavy. But I think the number one key to this game is Alabama can't chase points. And the thing I mean by that is if Ole Miss gets ahead 14-0, I think it could be a long day for Alabama in trying to keep up, particularly with how porous their defense has been. But look, Ole Miss at 8-1 is still looking at a possibility of winning the West themselves. So there, as Shane said, there's plenty at stake in this game.
It is, and I love my Ole Miss Rebels, but if you look at who they've played, they have not played and beaten anybody worth a damn, quite honestly.
That's true.
So I'm anxious to see. The thing that surprised me the most about Alabama is with Will Anderson and all those guys that were getting all the love at the beginning of the year, I'm just shocked at how they've played up front defensively. Just not have played well at all. Arkansas hosts LSU coming off the big win. Is there a letdown for the Tigers? This is the battle for the boot.
Yes.
Arkansas is in a downward spiral somehow. I don't know what's happening with the Hogs. What do you see happening in this game?
Well, they lost to Liberty last week, got behind 21-3 at half, battled back, and nearly tied the game or got into it, certainly, so that they deserve some credit for that. They looked kind of flat in that game, but KJ Jefferson still continued to be okay. He threw 2 picks. Rocket Sanders only 60 yards. But look, you've been to Liberty, I know, and you know the money they've got invested. That's a decent football team. Now, Arkansas should win the game, but I give Liberty a lot of credit. So here's some numbers to keep in mind. LSU is 6-0 when they're averaging 4.7 yards a carry, and that's something important to look at. But Arkansas is 1-3 when they're allowing over 4 yards a carry, so the run game is going to be important here. I'm curious what you think about Harold Perkins, the defensive player for LSU.
He's pretty damn good. That's what I think.
Yeah, he was all over the field, not only against Alabama, but in a lot of the games that they have played. But here's the other thing. Now, Jane Daniels, as we touched on before in the Heisman race, has really come on. True dual threat. Kayshon Boutte, same thing at wide receiver as far as being a threat. Mike Neighbors is a good wide receiver. So they've got really good wide receivers. This is only their 3rd true road game of the year. I'm just wondering, Shane, LSU has the better roster, but LSU can also be an emotional team that after a big win, they go on the road and they can be pretty flat themselves. Arkansas wants to make up for that. And I'm not a great intangibles guy, more of a roster guy, but you mentioned the boot a few minutes ago. This is a big game for both of these teams. Would it shock you necessarily, Shane, if Arkansas rose up and won a game over an LSU team that was it would probably had gotten too high after the Alabama win?
It wouldn't shock me at all. Unfortunately, I don't think Arkansas is playing real well right now for whatever reason, but it's not going to be a cakewalk for them. I do know that. That Harold Perkins kid you're talking about, the true freshman outside linebacker, I want to say it was between LSU and the Gators. I'm not sure where he's from, but I know a lot of Gator fans are upset that he's not wearing orange and blue. And boy, is he a good football player.
Really is.
This is the game of the week. The Aggies are rolling into the Plains.
Yeah.
What a mess! What a mess these two programs are.
Boy, they there's no doubt about that. They, yeah, they really are. By the way, Harold Perkins is from Cypress, Texas.
Okay, I think we were in the hunt for him though. I could be wrong.
Yeah. He was also a member of the basketball team too, by the way. But no, you're the Auburn A&M game is between basically 2, 3, and 6 clubs. Auburn's making a big deal out of it because obviously the interim coach is Cadillac Williams, and he's been trying to get the emotion going for them. Auburn is 1-5 against teams that run for over 130 yards. So that's one thing to keep in mind in this game. They need to get the ball to Tank Bigsby, as we talk about all the time. Robbie Ashford, to his credit, has done a pretty good job for them this year. Where in the world do you start, though, with A&M, Shane? I mean, you saw him last week. Now, Haynes King was a quarterback, but Connor Weigman starting against Auburn. People may not have heard that yet. How about that? A&M's lost 5 straight games. Shane, first time since 1980 that they've lost 5 straight games. But here's what Jimbo is. This is a feather in his cap. He's saying, look, we've got our quarterback for the future in Connor Weigman. We've got all of these guys that we recruited who were 5-star kids on the defensive line, so we're set for the future is what they're trying to say. Even though 5-star linebacker Anthony Hill backed off of his commitment to them. So, and again, you saw them up close and personal. This Aggie team both these teams are struggling, and A&M is struggling probably even more than Auburn is.
Yeah, bad football team, lots of problems. 2 phenomenal running backs in this game with Tank Bigsby and Devon Achane. It's a shame they're both being wasted, but it'll be interesting to see who plays harder. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Auburn Tigers play a lot harder than the Aggies do.
Yeah, good point.
Gators are hosting South Carolina. I think it's a game that the Gators are going to win, no doubt. I firmly, this is the most confident game I felt all year long. Because we played well last week, our best game of the year. In South Carolina, even though they're 6-3, Brent, their schedule is pretty bad.
It is.
And I just don't think they're very good. What do you see with the Gators?
Well, South Carolina is 5-0 when it runs for over 100 yards. They're 1-3 when they don't. Now, Florida's allowed 134 more rushing yards in every game, but Kentucky. So that's something to watch. I tell you one thing that I'm impressed with Florida, among many things, that they are the second least penalized team in the league. I know some Gator fans, they may be surprised at that, but that's the facts. So, and I thought the defense with Patrick Toney leading them played much better. I mean, to shut out A&M over a couple of quarters, I thought was impressive too. But and South Carolina beat Vandy last week. Spencer Rattler was okay in the game. I'm going to be real curious what you think of him. But he is really up and down. He's incredibly inconsistent. There are times when Rattler looks like an NFL prospect. And Shane, there are times he looks like a junior college quarterback. I'm just being honest about that. And sometimes he can do that in the same drive. And you and I talked about this in the preseason. He's got a good arm. He's got a lot of good tools to be a quarterback. But there's still something that's just not quite right and just hadn't come together yet for him.
Yeah, he was the number 1 quarterback coming out of high school that went to Oklahoma and played, his true freshman year or redshirt freshman year, I can't remember, had a really good year. And then, boy, he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I don't know what happened. But anyway, we'll see. Anthony played much better, his best game of the year. I think the Gators win easily in this game. The Dogs, coming off their big win against Tennessee, travel to face the other Bulldogs, Mississippi State, who they sputter around, and I don't know. I don't think this game can even be close, Brent. I don't know why. I just think Georgia's going to manhandle them.
And I think it's a character game for Georgia. It's a maturity game. Okay, you beat Tennessee, you're back to number one. How are you going to handle Mississippi State? That's a little different with the passing game. The passing game is basically their running game. They like to throw it short, and Will Rogers had basically 60 passes last week. But and as we said earlier, Georgia running back by committee, wide receiver by committee, except for probably Brock Bowers. Jalen Carter is back. That's made a difference. Georgia had six sacks, 8 tackles for loss versus Tennessee. That defense was just incredible. Held them without a touchdown or a gain of 20 yards for the first 55 minutes. Georgia's banged up a little bit, but I think they will be fine. I'm with Shane. I don't think there's any way Mississippi State will win the game. State got ahead of Auburn by a wide margin, and then Auburn came back, got it to overtime, and State was able to win. Will Rogers leads the SEC nearly 3,000 yards. So, but it'll be a little bit of a test, I think, mentally as much as anything else for Georgia. But Shane, is it safe to say they are the most consistent team in the conference, probably by far?
Oh yeah, they're the best. They're the best team in America. I hate saying that, but I'm just being honest.
Yeah, right.
Brent, did you see the stuff on Twitter where Mike Leach during the game the other night, he went and took the folding chairs where his receivers sat down?
Yes, I did.
And, like, just threw them all on the ground and said they didn't deserve to sit down. He's a piece of work, man.
Hey, Shane, how many coach, except for maybe Coach Spurrier, and right now Nick Saban, and as long as we've been covering the SEC, how many guys could get by with that?
Yeah, him, and I think Lane can get away with a bunch of stuff too. He's interesting. He's an interesting dude. All right, let's move before we get you out of here, Brent. The ACC. I don't know if you got to watch the FSU Miami. I got to see it when we got back.
Yes.
That's a bad football team, and that program is in shambles. Give FSU credit. They manhandled the Canes.
I'll tell you what FSU's done this year. They have leaned on their running game. Now, Jordan Travis was 10 of 12 for 202, 3 touchdowns. That's fine. But Trey Benson was 15 for 128. 45-3. And Shane, I don't know if it was that close to you. So Tyler Van Dyke for Miami's knocked out of the game, and then Garcia's come in and relieve him. But right now, Florida State is the number one rushing team in the ACC, averaging 211 per game. They've got Syracuse. Remember, started 6-0. Now they're 6-3. Mm-hmm. So look, you've got a situation with Florida State to where they may, Shane, they could win 8 games this year, if not 9. So while Miami's got a lot of work to do, and that would be an understatement. And they should beat Georgia Tech. That would be incredibly embarrassing if it's not. If they can get to a bowl, that would help them a lot too. But the reality is, I think this Florida State team has made some significant progress this year, and they've leaned on their running game to do it.
Yes, they have. Brett, before we let you go, got any nuggets?
Well, we've got Vandy at Kentucky, and again, Kentucky. This is a nice stat for Kentucky. For the 4th time in the last 6 years, Kentucky has had a record of 6-3 or better through the first 9 games. And from 1990 to 2016, they had a record of 6-3 or better through their first 9 games, a total of 4 times. So I still say what Mark Stoops has done for them is significant, and that's a game that Kentucky should be able to win. Now, my biggest question to you is this. Now, Tennessee will beat Missouri, and I give Eli Drinkwitz some credit for what he's done this year. They've lost a lot of close games. I know you have seen them. Brady Cook's a pretty good quarterback. But, Shane, did you see to where they have given Drinkwitz an extension?
I saw that.
And they've given him a raise. Shane, he's making basically $6 million a year.
That's crazy.
So, now look, I'm not saying he's a terrible football coach, but I'm certainly not saying he's an elite football coach. But to his credit, I mean, they've done okay. I mean, they're 4-5. I think they'll get to a bowl game. But I'm reading between the lines here. I think where that comes from is with all these jobs open that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Shane, is it possible that Missouri got wind of maybe a team or two that was looking at Drinkwitz, and they just said, look, let's bite the bullet, let's keep him here and not go and have to find another coach anytime soon. Is that logical?
Could be. It could be. I think he's a decent football coach. He doesn't have a whole lot to work with, so they're going to give him some time, and I think that's good on Missouri's behalf.
Yeah.
So, Brent, great stuff as always. We'll talk to you next week, my man.
Good. Look forward to it, pal. Take care.
That's Brent Beaird, our college football analyst. Join us on the Titan More Hotline. Going to take a quick timeout. Come back. We'll be joined by Mike Ridaught for the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. You're watching and listening to Pod Up Matthews in the Morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Good morning and welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Celebration Point's where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Bass Pro Shops, International Diamond Center, Regal Cinemas, Dave & Buster's, Nike, Wawa, the Gadget Guys, and the HBC's restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, now selling head beer Coach American Lager in 16-ounce cans at Spurrier's Rooftop Bar, Gator Games, and select stores across Gainesville. We'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. We're going to head to the Titan More Hotline now, and we're joined by the top dog at theprepzone.com and Main Street Daily News. Mike Ridaught does a tremendous job covering sports here on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
Hey, good, Shane. Another crazy week. I mean, why not? We already with high school football played on a Monday night, a Tuesday, a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah, let's have another hurricane.
Yes, no doubt about it. We'll get to football in just a second, but Volleyball is
Okay.
winding down. There are some local teams in the North Central Florida area going to play for state titles this weekend.
Yeah, actually, Santa Fe swept Bishop Kenny of Jacksonville, so they are going to play for the Class 4A state title on Saturday. They've moved the championship, Shane. Friday's games are now going to be played on Sunday due to the storm, but the times, everything will stay the same for Saturday, so a 4 o'clock game for Santa Fe. Santa Fe was actually one of 4 teams in our coverage area at Main Street that got to a region final. Oak Hall just missed out on a state semifinal appearance. They lost in 5 to Christchurch Academy out of Jacksonville. But Union and Williston both got to the state semifinals in Class 1A. So really, overall, it was a really good year for volleyball. Also, Shane, I was scrambling on Wednesday, our high school show that we do at Sonic Drive-In every Wednesday night. We had the Oak Hall girls cross country team scheduled to come on the show. They just won the state title, but unfortunately Oak Hall made an announcement that no activities after 6 p.m., so we'll try to reschedule them. But also Buchholz cross country repeated as well, so looks like we could have a big fall for as far as state championships go.
So real quick, so Santa Fe Lady Raiders are the only ones playing for a state title, correct?
That's correct, in our area.
And what do you know about the team they're playing? Should they win this thing? Go back to back?
I think they're really good, Shane. I think only Santa Fe could beat themselves. They're pretty focused. They got the reigning Miss Volleyball, Jalen Stout, on their team, Coastal Carolina commit. I think, or I'm not sure if she signed yet, but definitely a commit. So I think, Santa Fe is the only team that can beat Santa Fe at this point. They seem to be focused. Again, they swept Bishop Kenny in that state semifinal. It's a team that has beaten them in the past, a team that just won a state championship a couple of years ago, Bishop Kenny. So, yeah, I think Santa Fe will bring home the state championship in 4A.
Yeah, I do too. I'm banned from going to watch the Lady Raiders, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not, no.
Well, because I went, because my good buddy Cooper Carlisle's daughter plays for them. And so I went to the one game they played Trinity Catholic at Santa Fe, and they got beat. And I think they only lost like 1 or 2 times the entire year. And so Coach Marshall said, I'm not allowed to come back. I'm bad
You
luck.
brought him bad luck.
Yeah, for sure.
Fair enough.
Yep. So, we wish them a lot of luck. All right, football is a mess. Tell us who, where, when everybody's playing.
Okay, so we were supposed to have high school football on Thursday. Buchholz and Pace, which is out of Pensacola, we're going to play at Citizens Field. However, that game, because of the weather, was moved to Friday night. Because Eastside has a home game, they're playing North Marion at home. Buchholz will now play their game against Pace over at Newberry High School. I don't know the details there, why it was moved to Newberry. I know there's some relationships there with a couple of the coaches and the AD. Maybe that might be why. But I would have thought, Santa Fe, bigger stadium, you could get more people. But the question, Shane, that I have...
The new principal at Buchholz used to be out. And he was somewhere in the front office there at Newberry High School, so that's probably where they worked that deal out.
Yeah. What I wonder, with Alachua County being out on Thursday and Friday, how are these teams? Are they only going to get in 3 days of practice this week? Pace, they're making that long trip from the Pensacola area. Do they have to do that in one day? Are there going to be hotelish? I don't know if they're traveling on Thursday or not. So that would be the question, around that. But as far as the other game, Shane, from the Main Street coverage area, we have a total of 13 teams that made the postseason. Now, some of them either received a bye and they're off, or in PK Young's case, because of the classification that they're in, Shane, PK Young doesn't play their first round playoff game until next Friday night, which is weird. Again, 1S, they're in the same classification as Trinity Catholic, which I think will win Class 1S. Celtics are really good. But looking at Class 1R, Union County received a bye in Region 3. They play the winner of Fort White, Madison County. Madison's the defending state champion, as you know. Also, Branford will play at Mayo Lafayette. Winner of that plays the number 2 seed Hilliard. In Region 4, Hawthorne received a bye. They will play the winner of Williston Wildwood. We'll maybe talk about Williston and Chiefland here in just a moment, but Williston is the 4 seed. Wildwood is the 5 seed. The winner plays Hawthorne. And then Chiefland, the 3 seed, plays Newberry, the 6 seed. Pahokee, the 2 seed, receive the bye. So the winner of that Chiefland-Newberry game will play against Pahokee. And just real quick here, other games, Lake City, Columbia is playing against Tallahassee, Lincoln. That's in Class 3S. Live Oak, Swanee, and 2S will be at home against the Phoenix Springs, Walton. Stark Bradford, which just lost their first game of the year. They're at home against Crescent City. And 2S, I mentioned Eastside, they're playing North Marion. That's a rematch of a district game. That will be on Friday night. That's the game that we're going to broadcast, Shane, on 106.9 IM Country. And we're also going to stream video for that game. You can watch the game online at theprepzone.com.
Yeah, Buchholz, they've actually lost 2 in a row, believe it or not. They lost to Bowles. Bowles put it on them last week. I know they've had a lot of injuries, especially on the defensive side of the ball. What do you know about the Pace team that Buchholz will be facing?
Okay, so just to follow up on your comment about Bowles, they're a perennial power, but Mark Whittemore even told me that it wasn't the same Bowles team as last year, who Buchholz beat, by 1 score. But then again, that Buchholz team was probably a little bit better than this year's Buchholz team. But that being said, Bowles had just lost to Bishop Kenny for the first time since the 70s. And I talked to Chuck Bell, the defensive coordinator at Buchholz, and he said that they brought their big game mentality into this one. They were determined to get back on the field, and they have a sophomore running back that had run for 229 yards, Ty Neal, 3 touchdowns. But Coach Bell told me that Bowles started 6 of their drives on their side of the 50. Not to take anything away from Bowles, but he said they had a short field to work with quite a bit in that game. Now, Pace, they almost kind of mirror from an offensive standpoint Buchholz, in that, Buchholz really, outside of Creed Whittemore, yes, they got an okay running back, but really Whittemore is the guy that makes that team go, other than their Division I receivers that they have. Same thing with Pace. Pace is really talented on both sides of the line, offensive and defensive line, but they run a version of the wing T on offense, which Buchholz doesn't see that often, but they are similar to Buchholz in that their quarterback is their leading rusher. So both teams come in with their quarterback as their leading rusher. I think for this game, it's more about Buchholz than Pace. The thing that's tough, Shane, is that, because Buchholz lost to Bartram Trail, now they're going to have to travel in the postseason. They are the number 3 seed in Region 1. If they win and Niceville wins, they've got to go to number 2 Niceville next Friday night. And then if somehow they do win that game in the Panhandle, then they're probably going to have to go to Bartram Trail, who beat them, fairly easily, I thought, in the regular season. So we'll see. I think Buchholz can win this game on Friday night. But beyond that, I don't know. At the beginning of the year, I thought Buchholz and Hawthorne were our 2 best bets to bring home a state championship. But now I don't know how far Buchholz can go. We'll see. They've been road warriors in the past. I'm definitely not counting them out, but it's going to be a tough trip to Niceville. That's where they have to go next week.
Are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Darlene Weeby, a realtor, Caldwell Banker, M. Paris, provide you fast, friendly, reliable service. Give her a call today. 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come true. A few more minutes with Mike Ridaught from the Main Street Daily News and theprepzone.com. Mike, I wanted to touch Eastside. They're going to the playoffs. They've had a heck of a year, got a good little quarterback in Holden Johnson. Do they have a chance to advance here? And when is the last time they were in the playoffs?
Well, it's the first time they've won a district title in 10 years. I know that. I'll have to double check. It's been in the last few years, they did make a playoff appearance. I want to say 3 or 4 years since they've been to the postseason. But you're right about Holden Johnson. I mean, I think he's one of the reasons why this team did win a district championship. They beat, their rival Gainesville for the first time since the 2008 season. Holden with almost 1,500 yards passing this year. And one of the things I asked him about was, what did he improve on? And he said, really, making sure he didn't throw it to the other team, basically. He's got 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So he's been a big reason, you're right, why, Eastside has had a really good season. They've got two pretty decent receivers in Antonio Wilson and Antonio Hubbard. Both those guys have combined for over 1,000 yards receiving this year. And they play a North Marion team that they did beat the first time. However, there were some guys out for the Colts in that game. So I'm interested to see how is this game going to match up with those guys back for North Marion, because North Marion's been coming on late in the season. Once they lost to Swanee, then they kind of bounced back and they beat Vanguard. I think a lot of people were surprised North Marion would beat Vanguard, but they did. And they're going to be tough to beat. The good news for Eastside is they're playing that game at Citizens Field. And that Eastside defense, too, I think that's another big reason why they've got a chance, because, they've only given up, Shane, 100 points this year in 9 games. So it's been a good defense. Gator Hoskins has that team believing. They go out in the field, they believe they're going to win. He's brought that winning mentality to Eastside.
Before we let you go, back to the 1A, whatever they're called, the Union Counties of the world. When you mentioned earlier the matchups this week, I think you said Hawthorne's got a bye, Union County has a bye. But Correct. Who would Union County play possibly next week? Because it sounded like the side of the bracket that Hawthorne is on is much more difficult to me when you have Wildwood, Williston, and Chiefland.
Oh,
Am
way
I wrong
more
there?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, because Madison County, which is in Union County's region, even though they're the defending state champions, and I know they've played a tough schedule, but they've only won, 3 games this year. Union County would play the winner of that Madison County-Fort White game. It will be in Madison, so it'll be tough for Fort White to win. But then you got Lafayette and Brantford and Hilliard in that region. As you mentioned, compared to Region 4, Pahokee, the number 2 seed. Some people feel like Pahokee might win the state championship this year. Hawthorne, which has been the back-to-back 1A state championship games. You mentioned Wildwood. I mean, don't count them out. Their last 3 games, they've really been coming on. And then you got Williston, which went and just handled. The final score probably wasn't indicative of how close it was. I think it was an 8-point game in the second half. And then, Williston scored a lot of points late. But that's going to be a tough matchup for Williston. And then Chiefland Newberry on top of that. So, yeah, I mean, Region 4 easily in 1R is way stronger than up there in 1-3. And don't forget, Hawthorne beat Union County. They didn't come back from a 21-0 deficit, but they did beat Union County and Lake Butler. So that goes to show you how strong 1R Region 4 is.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, Mike, let everybody know again what games you're broadcasting, how they can listen, how they can read the Main Street Daily News.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll have a high school football preview that you can check out at mainstreetdailynews.com. Our coverage will have 2 games that we'll be broadcasting. Pace at Buchholz at Newberry High School, 7:30 game, 7:15 pregame. You can listen to it online at mainstreetdailynews.com. And then our radio broadcast on Friday night is North Marion at Eastside, also a 7:30 kick, but we'll be on the air at 7 o'clock with our pregame coverage on 106.9 FM IM Country. Plus, we'll have video. You can watch the game online at theprepzone.com through our social media accounts, Shane, Twitter and Twitch and Facebook Live and YouTube.
One last thing I want to ask. Where are the state championship games being played? Same place as the last year?
Yes, correct. So they'll be on 2 different weekends coming up at, second weekend of December. The 1M, 1R, 1S, and 2S will be played December the 8th through the 10th. And then 2M, 3M, 4M, 3S, and 4S. I hate these classes. They're going to be played in Fort Lauderdale the 15th through the 17th.
All right. Good stuff as always, Mike. We appreciate your time, my man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, Shane. Have a great one. Thank you.
That's Mike Ridaught, who does a phenomenal job covering high school athletics in the North Central Florida area. Make sure you go check him out. Follow him on theprepzone.com and the Main Street Daily News. Rugo State Farm offers a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit ogreinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. I hope you enjoyed today's program. It was taped, folks. We had to tape it. Tomorrow's program, Friday, we got an action-packed. JC and I will have our Peachland Dental weekend picks. We're going to have Todd Ellis, voice of the South Carolina Gamecocks, former quarterback himself there at USC. And we're going to have Alyssa Lang, who will be on the call on the sidelines for the Gators and the Gamecocks. Also does a lot of work for the SEC Network. and she's a South Carolina grad as well. So make sure you tune in for that. Hope everybody's safe out there. Hunker down, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.